Hey, what's up guys? John here. The biggest banking crisis since 1929 could be unfolding inside of the next 10 months. I'm talking somewhere around 1,000 banks failing. Did you know the Bank Term Funding Program that lent out $161 billion to banks that needed it during that crisis that occurred in March of last year?
A rough week for the banking industry.
The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank.
Signature Bank marks the third largest bank failure in U.S. history.
Collapse of another American bank could lead to a credit crunch and an economic slowdown.
Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic, PacWest got acquired by Bank of California, Credit Suisse. There was a whole disaster that was, unfolding, and they came forward with this bank term funding program. And what they ultimately did is they lent money to 1,804 banks, totaling $161 billion. And they told these banks, look, you might have massive losses right now. We'll buy those losses at 100% value. So you don't have to assume any of these losses right now. We'll give you the liquidity that you need. And so these banks jumped on this. The problem is that now these banks have to pay back that 100% value on the asset in which they were initially underwater on. As in the economy started to gradually get worse, those losses are continuing to compound. And there's no turning back from this. I'm going to show you what's actually going on because I believe we're walking into something huge here. I mean, this banking CEO came out about a month and a half ago. Top real estate CEO warns 500 or more banks will either fail or be consolidated in the next 2 years. I think he's right, but there's a couple things that I think that he's missing. Did you also know that the Japanese yen has went through a serious problem over the last couple days? All of this ties in together perfectly. So, before I even dive into this, please hit the like button, people share the content, educate more people about what's really going on in America and the world economy. And if you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself for funding, I believe we're going to see banks tighten up dramatically over the next year or two as their losses continue to skyrocket and there's a lot more chaos unfolding in the world. We'd love to help you if you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any issue at all in your credit report. Go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for tomorrow, for Wednesday. Take a look at this. So, it is crazy. You can't make this up. New evidence suggests the Bank of Japan intervened on Monday. When the Japanese yen crashed at 9:30 p.m. on Sunday night, the Japanese yen weakened to 160 against the US dollar for the first time in 34 years. Then exactly 2.5 hours after the headlines came out, the ratio just crashed from 160.20 to 156.50. Today, the Bank of Japan said its current account will fall 7.56 trillion yen or 48.2 billion USD, more than triple previous expectations. Did the Bank of Japan just artificially prop up their currency minutes after it collapsed? You can see this chart just stopped, right? Then fascinatingly, they said when we asked if someone intervened, it simply didn't make sense. The currency crashed just minutes after hitting 160. Now, what I believe could very well happen is the Japanese could start to, dump the treasury, the U.S. debt. And they are currently the largest holder. And so if they do start to dump this debt at a moment in which we need to have some of the largest treasury sales we've ever had, $11 trillion every single year for the next 5.5 years, and they're selling, and a lot of countries are not buying our debt, well, what's going to happen? The yield on this debt is going to become more and more attractive. They're going to force the yield up to try to entice investors to buy it. And so as that begins to happen, what are people with money in banks going to do? They're going to look at their 0.01%, say, why am I keeping it in here when I could go get 5%, 5.5%, 6% over there? If you have $100,000 in the bank, it makes $500 a month. That's pretty attractive, right? No work, nothing. A lot of people are going to start leaning into that more and more and more as yields begin to likely increase. They say investors brace for 5% yields as U.S. inflation worries them out. Reuters, right? 2 days ago, soaring treasury yields challenge stock market gains. They came out and they also said today, Republic First seizure signals more bank failures to come. And they are going to come. Demand for Fed bank term funding facility grows, right? And in December, it was $131 billion, and it finished at about $161 billion. But over 1,800 banks used this emergency lending post Silicon Valley bank failure. So 1,800 banks used it. the latest failure that occurred 3 days ago, Republic Bank failure, they had $6 billion in total assets and $4 billion in total deposits. And so when you look at this, it cost the FDIC $667 million. $667 million when this bank failed, right? And a lot of people think the FDIC is this, perfect insurance plan for America. I got news for you. It's not. I mean, they're basically broke. They got like $128 billion, but considering the amount of money that's inside of the system, you're looking at $17 trillion. They're not doing any they're not going to, prevent this damage from unfolding. So the more you look into this, the more you'll start to see. So this is assets, liquidity, and credit facilities. This is the Bank Term Funding Program, right? The Bank Term Funding Program, they still have, 125-ish billion, 125 billion left that needs to go back. So these banks need to pay back the 125 billion. Now, from April 2022 to May 2023, deposits already fell $1 trillion, right? That was, this is 1 year ago. So imagine how much more it's, deposits have pulled, right? Deposits have pulled back dramatically. And then this came up. 1,804 banks borrowed from the BTFP. I wouldn't have guessed that many. Then this came out from Bloomberg. Some of the nation's largest financial institutions appear to have participated in the Federal Reserve's emergency funding tool that expired last month. The latest Fed semi-annual financial stability report released Friday details the use of the Bank Term Funding Program, or BTFP, that was launched last year amid the March regional banking crisis to restore confidence in the financial system. Of more than 9,000 institutions eligible to participate, 1,804 took advances from Wrightson IPAC economist wrote on Monday. While 95% of those are small institutions with assets of less than 10 billion, 98 banks with assets of more than 10 billion also tapped the funding. So the bank consolidation, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be the perfect type of vehicle to do this. And you have to ask yourself, let's say of the 1,804 banks, let's say half are in trouble. It's probably going to be more than that, but let's just say half, right? What are you looking at? 950 banks, right? If 950 banks, even say less than that, say 500 banks, 400 banks, they sell, right, or they fold up and they consolidate, they're going to be dumping their assets. They're going to be dumping commercial real estate. They're going to be dumping some of these loans, right? The stock market will likely see a negative net downside to what's unfolding in banking. And the amount of, changed perspective on the stability of the U.S. economy probably be pretty great, right? People are going to go from thinking, unemployment's at 3-4%, this is the best job market in 50 plus years, to, wait, more banks are failing? Wait, dozens of banks are failing? Or, people are going to start to get shook, especially with the power of social media. Information spreads very, very quickly. So I do believe we could see some problems. In other words, the FSR suggests that well over 50% of all large institutions took advantage of concessionary terms of the BTFP versus only 20% of smaller banks. Now, look at this. California Bank are most exposed to commercial real estate. Share of banks with CRE loans 3 times or more of their own capital. So think about this. California, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Washington, Oregon, New York, Maryland, Arizona, Alaska, Massachusetts. Right? This is 3 times more than their capital. And commercial real estate, what's unfolded in commercial real estate? It's been a bloodbath. Now, I'm seeing markdown 70, 80, some even 90% of former values that were trading for a decade ago. And these banks have 3 times more exposure to that debt than, that's a major issue, right? It's a major issue. So let's just say, for example, 1,804 banks, half of them fail. So, 902, right? So 902, what that would look like is if the same losses were true for First Republic or, Republic Bank, what that would look like is this. So they were reporting somewhere around the, let's see here, $667 million. So if it was, and this is not a big bank, like they have $6 billion in total assets, $4 billion in deposits. So $667 million is what it cost the FDIC, right? And so if that number is true, right, 667, and there's 1,804 banks, the total losses would be, $1.2 trillion, right? The FDIC, they have $128 billion. So let's just say, for example, it's not 1,804, let's just say, it's 300. Like, let's just go extremely conservative, right? If it's 300, FDIC is bust, right? That's what it looks like. FDIC is bust. And like, they're in major, major, major trouble, right? And so with it, I think the American people will be stuck holding the bag, because I think they will likely print tons and tons of money to try to, stabilize the U.S. banking system, bringing forward record high inflation, and changing the U.S. economy forever. What do you think about this situation? I wish this wasn't true, but I'm just trying to figure out, how is this not true? So if there's 1,800 banks that borrowed from this bank term funding program, they all have to pay it back by March 11th of next year. Where are they getting this $120 billion when money's flowing out of banks and their losses are continuing to grow? And not to mention that look at the headlines they're putting out here. Powell warns commercial real estate woes will lead to bank failures. 1 month ago, Powell, there'll be more bank failures. I believe they're trying to normalize this. They're normalizing it because they know this is going to happen. There will be more bank failures, right? 1 month ago, like, they're prepping it. You look at, Janet Yellen was saying, some banks may be quite stressed. Well, obviously, right? And Jerome Powell may not rule out further rate hikes as Fed gets ready to meet inflation 2 days ago. So hiking rates, what would that do, right? It would force more losses on these banks, putting more pressure on these banks. I think we're walking into something here. Again, like, I'm not trying to be, trying to be a doomer or anything like that, but data suggests what data suggests, right? I think we're walking into a scenario where we're going to likely see a lot of investors getting really, really aggressive during the panic, and I think we could, be not years away, months away, weeks away. What do you think about this entire situation? Let's have a conversation about this below. And if you like to fix your credit to position yourself for funding, I believe if you have average credit, which is a 698, average credit, even slightly better than average credit, you want to be top tier credit. Like, you want to be a top tier borrower, strong financials, low consumer debt. Like, you want to put yourself in the best position possible for funding. And right now they're still offering, 0% APR balance transfer credit cards and offers that help people get out of debt. So I would definitely utilize those if you can get approved for them. You have to obviously do your own research and due diligence on what you apply for. But I would definitely make some smart moves the next couple months to kind of position yourself for this. If you need help fixing your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any issue on your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com, click the link in the description just below this video, and catch you next video.